My name is Mohamedou Ould Slahi. I was held and detained in Guantánamo Bay for 15 years. I was never charged or convicted of any crime. And this is everything I'm authorized to tell you. Guantánamo Bay was designed from the beginning to undercut the rule of law. Escaping was impossible. There are so many gates and so many levels of security. Even if you miraculously get out of everything and survive the shot of the towers and survive the mines outside it, you find yourself in the water. If you are under interrogation, like in my case, you are inside a cell. You can shout all you want. No one is going to hear you. I will never forget my first night in Guantánamo Bay, August the 5th of 2002. Before that flight, I never heard of the place. I was kidnapped right after 9/11, and I was held incommunicado. And I remember being dragged out of the plane. I was walking dead. I was under constant punishment for, I think, 37 hours. The only thing I was feeling was total and utter terror, confusion, and disorientation, and still feel to this day the beating. We were taken to a place, and I stayed the best part of the day under the baking sun. If you remember the photo that they showed, those people kneeling with goggles, blindfold, I was one of those people. They put me in those red, infamous uniforms. They took my pictures, my fingerprints, and it was almost surreal. They asked what languages you speak. So back then, I told them I spoke Arabic, German, and French. So my English was not functional. They started to interrogate me. I don't know how long. They took me to Aska Block. Aska Block is one of those torture block. There was India Block. I went also to India Block, but my first torture block was Oscar. And Oscar was like divided to small, what we call them fridges. Very small cell, 6x8. And I never forget my first night. When the door slammed shut, there was nothing in there. And I am claustrophobic. I start to panic. I couldn't breathe. There was only this bean hole, a very small hole, through which they give you food and they talk to you. They also do the head count. When they count the detainee, they do it every 15 minutes or so. And because this way you cannot sleep, because they will open it. You know, it's very heavy metal. This is when it hit me. I know there was no one to save me. I knew I was on my own against the most powerful country in the world, arguably the most powerful country ever. They can do anything they want. For 9 months, my whole time, I was with general population. I was very happy. I could talk to other detainees. My neighbors were some were very famous. David Hicks from Australia and another detainee, Bishr Al-Rawi. I was with general population, but I was in a cell. So we were not like, I was not sitting with them or anything. One of the British guy and the Australian guy, they started to teach me English. You know, I just hear and then memorize. I wasn't allowed to have papers. I wasn't allowed to have pens. In that social order in a prison, leaders emerge. People who want to be leader with religious authority or age authority. People with knowledge, especially of the English language. If you know the English language, that's a privilege because the guard uses you to translate between them and other detainees. And that gives you like a special place where you can expect detainees to give you special respect. The guard were completely aware of everything that was going on, and they used to their advantage. When they see leaders, they want to talk to the leaders to keep control of the prison population. What also they do, they spread rumors. They put a rumor in one block and they see how it develops in the other blocks, because they want to see the communication between the blocks, how information flows. They relay messages, but mostly fake news that was spread by interrogators. In general population in Guantanamo Bay, I was taken to interrogation every single day. Let me tell you about enhanced interrogation technique after 9/11. American public, and rightly so, was putting a lot of pressure on the government to hold people accountable who killed 3,000 people. But American government, after 2 years, was none the wiser. Instead of being honest with the public, saying we screwed up, they said, we think those people who were already arrested are bad people, but how can we make them bad people? How could we bump them from detainees to real criminals who are responsible? We want full-fledged confessions. Full-fledged confessions they did not get, so they want to use torture. What was applied on me is started with sleep deprivation. The interrogation was 24 hours. I remained in that 70 days. So, and then they threatened me with like sexual assault. They did to me sexual assault 3 times. What was done was stripping and then touching you. There was no penetration. I was waterboarded once. I almost died. And you know the problem. Enhanced interrogation technique, even if they apply them, 100% the way it was written is torture. But they went beyond them because it's a Pandora box. I give you 2 examples. One time they took me to the fridge, a place where they put you, they keep you very cold. And then they would come to me and then they would pour water on me. And the water would get cold. And then they told me they would keep doing this until I decide to speak. I was so cold and hypothermia started to set in. I couldn't speak. And then this sergeant, I never forget it, her name is Mary, Sergeant Mary, she asked him to stop. I don't know whether she saw that I was dying. And the other one is when they took me for the waterboarding and beating. I was beating everywhere, I couldn't breathe, but I survived. And if you survive, you have certain strength. But there are people who did not survive. That's why they did not allow journalists to Guantanamo Bay. They allow now the highly orchestrated visit where they show you only what they want to show you. When Barack Obama came, that is stop torture. Torture was already illegal. Was illegal during George W. Bush time and after his time and today. But if you're powerful enough, you can torture people and you can get away with it. You know what really kept me going? My saving grace, I contend, was the teaching of my grandma. My grandma always told me, Mohamedou, Allah wants you always to be a kind person. So to protest my detention, there are 2 things I personally did. None of them worked. So I started with a hunger strike. And I did 5 days. And I stopped. Because I knew I couldn't continue. Because my plan was not to die. And it's painful. And the other thing I did, I refused to talk to my interrogators. They would ask me question, your name, no answer. Where are you from? No answer. Always would tell them in the beginning, you need to tell me why you kidnapped me, and I will talk to you. As long as you don't answer this question, I will not talk to you. And this was broken with torture. When they tortured me, I was talking like a bird, like a singing bird. I'm going to talk about the difference between my treatment through the FBI, CIA, and the military intelligence. I'm tempted to say they are working together very closely. CIA, people who interrogate me in Guantanamo Bay, they did not present themselves. I only assume they are CIA. But FBI will present themselves. This is my name, and I'm FBI. But they give you fake name, as it turned out. So Rob Seidler and Chris were my interrogators. Later on, I learned that those are fake names. They never tortured me. But they told me if I don't talk to them, there is another team that would come and torture me. And I was so stupid, and I told them, bring it on. This is when Richard Zuli teams. Richard Zuli is a contractor. He started to bring his team, and they start to torture me. And they brought me a letter from the Department of Defense. And a letter said that they would kidnap my mother. They insinuated she would be also sexually assaulted. And they say, because I refused to confess to my crimes. And I lost it. I told them I would confess to anything you want. I'm sorry, I was not cooperating, and so. Early 2004, I wrote my confession. They told me to write my confession. And after I did that, two things happened. First, the good guys of the CIA with the necktie who don't torture people came to collect the fruits. Second thing, what happened? I was designated for death penalty. And I remember, same guy who helped me write the confession, he came to me and said, you are now a death penalty case. I'm not a brave guy. But I wasn't scared. I had no feeling. I just was looking at him with his lips moving, explaining to me what death penalty means. Everybody will die. I, you, your neighbor, everybody will die. But the fact that someone comes to you and looks into your eyes and say, I am going to kill you, and I'm starting the process to kill you, that's another level of dealing with our mortality. I wasn't thinking about death. I was thinking about all the things I regretted in my life. The thing unraveled in early 2005. In mid-2005, I received for the first time my American lawyers. And along with them, I was also assigned to a new prosecutor, Air Force Colonel Mo Davis. The government did not want me to go to any court. They did not allow me to go to their periodic review. And they made this kangaroo court, what they call CSRT, Combatant Review Tribunal, something like that. And then nothing. In 2009, my lawyer succeeded to get a hearing. And I testified in the hearing. I wasn't allowed to go to court. I could only do through a computer connection, video call, because I was not allowed to go to the US. In 2010, I received the decision of the judge. He said there is no evidence to hold Mohamedou, and he ordered my release. And then I was stuck in the system. 4 years after that, they allowed me to go to a PRB. This is a periodic review board set up by Obama administration. I stayed 7 long years in prison after I was declared innocent. The dilemma of Guantanamo Bay, the only way out is if you had committed crime, because they could say, he did commit this, we can convict him. and then he can get out. But you didn't commit anything, you've seen too much, and then you are unreleasable. As later on, my government told me, when they asked the US government for my release, they told them he's unreleasable. When you come to the prison, as soon as you enter the door, you are mine. I will explain to you. Of course, you are escorted and you go inside. And then you will go to the next gate. At least you have to go through 4 gates in order to get to my area. And then after that, you have to go inside a building. That's a door. And then inside that building, there is a cell inside that building. So it's like a maze. The cell were 6 by 8. There is a metal bed, which is part of the cell. There is a hole and a sink. In the middle of the door, there is a bean hole through which they give you food. In the beginning, during the torture program, there is you don't leave the cell. The interrogation is inside. But when the torture program died down, I had the right to go outside the cell, of course. The rec-yard was 5 meters by 5. There is like a perimeter, very long wall, snipe screen they call it. It's 15 years. I never saw the sun rise or sun goes down. Never. 15 years. Sometime I try to climb a little bit, but I never made it to see the sun rise or the sunset. Crosstalk, meaning talking to a detainee, you are not allowed to talk to. That happened actually. It was not allowed to talk to a detainee from another block. When a detainee is with you, you can talk to them because he's next to you. But when a detainee is another block, you cannot shout and communicate with them. If you are under interrogation, like in my case, there is no way for you to talk to anyone anyway. You are inside the cell.
Do you know how much it costs to operate Guantanamo, or like how much it costs to keep somebody there?
The information I got consistently from the people who spoke to me in Guantanamo Bay, either interrogators or guard, is about $1 million a month. It's crazy because this is a very big business. If you have good contract with the government, they send you to Guantanamo Bay, let's say to provide clothes. We have no clothes, it's just a uniform. And then they bring like almost slave labor, like they call them TCN, third country national, mostly from the Philippines and Jamaica. Those are the people who do the heavy lifting of cooking, cleaning, and driving stuff around. They also are the builders. So those big companies, prison companies, a very big establishment in the US, they come, get very fat contracts in Guantanamo Bay, and then employ like Jamaicans and Filipinos. This is something I saw with my eyes. Of course, I did not ask them what they paid them, but the guard, they joke about them. They call them $1 a day. That's their names. A guard is paid the same thing, whether he was in Guantanamo or in Iraq. It's very public because you are paid based on your rank. And that's very known, something you can go online and see it. I think this is only like a shot in the dark. I think most money goes to intelligence contractors, like psychologists who can sit with you and tell them how to break a detainee. Not even the FBI or the CIA, like contractors. They call it the sliding door. So it's very corrupt system. So if you are an FBI agent, you are 15, you work 10 years, 15 years, you said, goodbye, I'm leaving. You come back knocking, you say, now I want to be a contractor. And then there when you make the real money. And that's where the money in Guantanamo Bay is. The guard's job is to keep you imprisoned safely. If you are sick, they call the medics. They serve your food because you cannot serve yourself and they keep you incarcerated. If you try to run away, they force you inside your cell. If you become irate, they will put you in chains. I remember this guard, they told me to clean their room. I want to clean their room because I want to spy to see what they are doing. So they were lazy. His name is Edmund. How do I know his name? Even though they were like hiding their names, they told me, come, clean our space. I said, this is my opportunity. After I'm done, he gave me one Pepsi. So then we started like the relationship. You know, I'm like the slave. This is the privilege of to be nobody. You know, I was important in my family, important in my country, but now I was nobody. Anyone can beat me, no one respects you, anyone can order you around. Steve Wood, whom I met for the first time in 2004, came to my cell and he asked me to drink a cup of coffee with him. He was the sergeant of the guards. He asked me whether I can play card games. Then I say, just teach me. And he taught me rummy. And then I start smoking him. He says in his story that he smoked me, but I smoked him. And now we are friends. He came to visit me 2 times in Mauritania, 1 time in the Netherlands, and I'm the godfather of his daughter, Summer. He's the godfather of my son, Ahmed. And Steve and I are working to make the world a better place through understanding, dialogue, and freedom. When I was captured, I was living and working in Mauritania. The backstory, why American intelligence was interested in me, was very simple. I received a phone call from my cousin, who was the friend of Osama bin Laden, using the phone of Osama bin Laden. Very legitimate call, family call. He wants me to help his father, who was sick, held in the hospital. That was it. And I was completely, blissfully unaware. And from that moment on, completely not to my knowledge, I was being followed. Of course, later on, my family talked to my cousin what went on when this was public. He said, I did not use the phone of Osama bin Laden. He said that, and I tend to believe him. And then 9/11 happened, and several weeks after 9/11, I was with my mother. I finished working. Back then I was programmer, an IT person. Back then you have to code every single line on your own. And I had a very good living, for Mauritanian standards. I was taking care of my mother, taking care of my family, taking care of my sisters. And 2 police agents came in civilian clothes, plain clothes. They have this air of confidence, authority. There is no arrest warrant. They don't need an arrest warrant. They only need marching orders from the president, who received marching orders from the United States of America. I was kidnapped and taken to Jordan. So the United States of America asked Mauritania to arrest me. And they said, why you want him arrested? They said, because he did unspeakable crimes in relation to 9/11. Mauritania is a very small country, back then 3 million or 2.5 million. So they took me to Jordan, and Jordan was a very well oiled machine of CIA torture and disappearances. I wish I could tell the viewers here that I was brave or I wasn't scared. I was so scared, I almost lost my mind. I was taken to Jordan, where I stayed in darkness 8 long months. I was beaten. I was made to listen to other people being tortured all night long. I spent almost a year in other black sites, namely in Jordan and Bagram, that is an American air base in Afghanistan. I never saw my mom again. And I could, to this day, the image of my mom in the rearview mirror is seared in my memory. She was praying frantically. She held her prayer beads, and she was praying for my return, a return that never happened. 11 years after that in Guantánamo Bay, 2 officers came to me, and they told me, Mohamedou, your brother died, and your mom too. And then my world collapsed. In Guantánamo Bay, especially for me who was in isolation, you have to grieve inside yourself. You have to pray alone. And even so that you know, we were not allowed to have grieving counselor, an imam. And I remember them bringing me a priest, but not any priest, a black priest. And that's why I love American sense of humor, because they figured, okay, this guy is a Muslim. What a big difference could be between a Muslim and a black guy, black Christian. And this poor guy started reading from the Bible and so sweating. I said, dude, you don't have to do anything. You are free to go. And then they left, and then I started punishing my body, and I stood up and sang the Quran 12 hours, 6 hours, and then I collapsed in my cell, and then later on I woke up, and then I sang 6 hours. And I think after 1 or 2 days, I don't remember, they took me to the hospital. They put me on suicide watch because I was completely devastated. So I was in general population when I started to write my diaries. I did not have papers. I did not have a pen. But I did steal papers and pen from my neighbors who had the right to have them. I wrote in Arabic, in French, and in German at the same time. I did not write in English because my English was not good enough. And then in June 2003, when I was put in the program of torture, they took everything. They found everything, and then they deprived me of everything I wrote. I would wait until end of 2005, and I was given the right to communicate with my lawyers. I could write them letters. I wrote the whole diary in 8 weeks. I wrote very small. I wrote on both sides of the papers because I want to look small. I didn't want them to think, oh, he's writing a lot. Then I kept sending them, numbering them, until I wrote everything. In Guantánamo Bay, there is no 100% privacy between me and my lawyer. So the government can see also the letters. So my lawyer can read my letter, she can close it and give it back to the government. The government said, we will not read it, just put it there, but don't talk about it. But if my lawyer said, oh, this is good information, I'm taking this to my office, and this could help me also my publicity. They said, you cannot take it from here. There is a room in DC just for our letters. If you take it, we have to read it. That's exactly what happens in my case, because she saw this is very important material. I need to take it because this would prove his innocence. They read it, they said, we read it, it's bad, it's not going. And then it stays with them 7 or 8 years, between 7 and 8 years. They were refusing to give it to my lawyer. And after a big battle, they took out a lot of it, heavily censored. They give her a copy that is heavily censored. 2015, the heavy censored version was published. I was in prison. It was the first book ever written as a first account by a detainee in Guantanamo Bay. I never forget that day. I was sitting, pretending to learn Spanish, and in my cell, and the first news item, I think, was my photo with my book. I felt free inside prison. Because when your story is out there, when your family knows you never betrayed their values, the values you were raised on, that is when you feel free. When you know also the world is sympathizing with you. Because you are not a criminal. You are being wrong. My book is called Guantánamo Diary. There is also a companion of the film with the same name, The Mauritanian. I was released October 17th, almost 9 years ago. I was released to Mauritania. I never forget that day, never. I remember this Air Force captain, blonde. She stuck her head through the pinhole and she was smiling the most beautiful smile. I never saw her before. She said, "You know that you are going home?" She was happier than I was. That shows you character, It shows you that the people, a lot of people who are working there, they really were aware of the pain they were causing to families, to people who were incarcerated, wrongfully. I remember what I had in my cell. I had a couple of DVDs of the show 2.5 Men. And if you are watching that, you should be ashamed of yourself. And I had Shakespeare plays. I read them. I didn't understand jack. And they were just the thick book. Everybody who could see in my cell, Shakespeare plays, think that I'm a smart guy. And I had the photos of my family over the years. I was horrified to meet my family, and I wouldn't recognize them. Because the kids I left 2 years, they are now 17. A person I left with 15 years is now 30 years of age. Faces changes. Then I would look at the photos and test myself, photo after photo, and then write the names on the backside, just like those training cards. I was released to Mauritania. The first things I did, first I walked very long. I went to the dunes. I went to see the sunset, like looking straight at Guantanamo Bay, because the only thing that separates Mauritania from Guantanamo Bay is the sea. I could look straight at Guantanamo Bay and watch the sunset. And I ate chebujan, one of our national dishes. It's really good, like rice with fish, very spicy. I drank Mauritanian tea. Life's good. Life's good, I'm telling you. I don't know how to explain freedom to people who never lost their freedom, because it's very hard. I couldn't sleep for nights. And I remember for the first time I had a phone, and then like the whole world opens, and I would watch YouTubes over and over and over, useless videos, completely no life. What I'm doing now, I won the Peace Prize of the Netherlands. I have my own consultancy company in the Netherlands. I live now in Rotterdam. Actually, it's called Rotterdam. Every day I walk the street. And I never forget, like almost 4 years ago when I came to the country for the first time. The biggest lesson, kindness, to be kind to everyone, and learning. Because learning English in prison saved my life. People start talk to me, understanding me, I start explaining stuff to them. I want to repeat that in the Netherlands. And my first day I start speaking the language. I integrated so quickly, and I went and I did all the tests, and I passed the test. And then I was like granted the citizenship, and it was so much easier to travel with a Dutch passport. I'm banned from visiting the US for life, and that's a win-win situation, by the way. I'm not planning anytime soon to go there. Guantanamo Bay was established by the former President George W. Bush through authorization to use military force because of what they called preemptive strike doctrine or something like that. What does it mean? If you watch movies, it means something like Minority Report on steroid, meaning that the president went to the people with power like military, CIA, FBI, tell them, I don't want you to take criminals and put them on trial. I want to take people who would be criminal and arrest them. So there is no crime. About 900 people were taken to Guantanamo Bay. More people died in Guantanamo Bay than people were convicted. Those are some of the cases we know happened because they were revealed, but there are people who died and we do not know about them. They just disappeared. If you come to Guantanamo Bay as someone who is not a prisoner, then you will see a sign that says Guantanamo Bay, JTF, which is Joint Task Force, JDG, Joint Detention Group, honor bound to defend freedom. Why should you convince anyone that you are a person of honor and that your duty is to defend freedom? And why should it be in the most infamous, notorious prison, arguably in the world? As of January, there are 15 people in Guantanamo Bay. And we are only talking about people in Guantanamo Bay. We never talk about the families of people in Guantanamo Bay. We never talk about the families of the people who lost their loved one on 9/11. Where is justice for those people? How long is going to take? Some of them passed on. Never seeing justice, never looking at the face of the person or the persons who killed their loved ones in cold blood. I know detainees because I belong to the network of former detainees. One detainee 2 nights ago texted me, he said he is very cold. He's living in a place, it's very cold, and he doesn't have money to buy food. He doesn't have money to buy a blanket. And we had to start a raiser for him to buy him a blanket and something to heat. The US government is shifting more and more toward abandoning the values of democracy and going more to authoritarianism. Guys, I grew up in a military dictatorship. I know dictatorship when I see one. Masked agents without arrest warrant who take people away from their neighborhood. That's not a democracy. Now they're doing it on the mainland of the United States of America. If you allow this, now they will go for the citizen. I am part of campaign to close Guantánamo Bay, specifically the UK campaign. We need more voices because Guantánamo Bay is very symbolic. Guantánamo Bay is not in Russia. It's not in some faraway dictatorship. It's under the color and authority of the United States of America. Rule number one, the US government never makes mistake. There is no accountability. There was no accountability during the war crime in Vietnam, and there is no accountability during the war in Iraq or in Afghanistan, etc., etc. And I did not ask for anything. I forgave the United States of America. I forgave the people who did all of this to me, and I did this for myself.
Hi, I'm a producer and Authorized account. If you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe and comment with more topics that you'd like us to cover in this series.